is Rowena Dooley asking Soul Citizens to report for duty.
Greetings, and welcome to the Soul Citizens. I am GriffinGamingRPG, and we are back for another great week of great conversation with some awesome guests. We have some very special people here. We opened up with a video that many of us Star Citizen backers were just kind of thrown. I don't even know what to say about that video. When it came out of nowhere and caught everybody off guard, it was the first video that we saw cinematic that we saw from Starjump Station. And those of us who remember it, we know we got so excited because it made us think that all those ships were out and playable in the game. And we found out that that was not true. So, Grim, we're mad at you because it's 2 years later.
Sorry.
Or 3 years later.
Some of them are in game.
Some of them are in game. Yes, some of them
made
are in game. Yeah. But anyway, we just wanted to kind of open it up because the theme of our show this week is shoots and scores, talking about how do content creators go through the process of shooting and scoring the presentations, the cinematics, the machinimas that we have come to love in the Star Citizen community. And we've got three great guests. I'm going to start on the left there for you guys. First off, GreydonSquare is joining us for the first time. Greydon, welcome. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
We are doing good. We are so happy that you accepted our invitation, and we're looking forward to seeing both you visually and audibly, because you've got some special stuff to share with us today that we're looking forward to.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. Natronix, you're back again. I don't know. We have to put you on the payroll. This is like, 2 weeks back to back, right? So
I feel very special. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you. We are a special group of people here, if you know what I mean. You don't know. Yeah. We're happy to have you here, man. And last but not least, Fast Cart reminded me, Grim, that we think that you may now hold the title for the most returning guest on Soul Citizens. I think you're beating Paul Shelley out now, so you might be holding the award right now at this point. We've got Grim back from Starjump Station. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. I'll take that as a great compliment. It's good to be on. Good. Appreciate the invite.
We're always happy to have you, man. And of course, my cohort's joining me, Jade Starwatcher. Jade.
Hey, hello.
And Kalrati. Kalrati, how are you?
Hello.
Okay, now you guys don't know this about Jade and Kalrati. I don't think we've ever really officially said this, but they are big into music and production and they've had their own videos and stuff out. So they were really excited to co-host this show with me. Actually, I think everybody here in this group in some form or other is connected to music, AV, or something. So hopefully we'll be able to share with you guys some really cool behind the scenes information, not just from the aspect of Star Citizen, but also what these folks do. Real quick, Greydon, tell some people, wow, thanks Jade, thank you Thrakazak, thank you General Larson, thank all of you guys for the subs. Greydon, before some people may not have seen any of your work before or unfamiliar, tell people who you are, tell people what you do in the Star Citizen community.
Again, I appreciate you guys for inviting me on your platform. My name is GreydonSquare, and I've been an independent musician essentially all my life. I mean, I'd say I started doing it professionally when I was about 26. I'm 41 now. And the type of music that I chose to specialize in was music that appealed to people's intellect. So I would talk about, physics and cosmology and anything to do with alien civilizations and time travel and evolution and biochemistry and anything you could think of that would stimulate some sort of any type of intellectual stimulation I would try to incorporate into my music. So and as far as what I do for the community directly, well, I provide music for the radio station that's fan run, and I appreciate that. Yeah, People's Radio, and I'm definitely blessed to be on there. And then also I run my own organization, and we try to organize meetups whenever there's a Bar Citizen. We did the Bar Citizen yesterday here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we had a nice contingent of people from the org show up there. So. I just try to contribute positive energy and try to live out my Star Trek fantasies of being a space captain.
Awesome.
And your first album, you had a collab with Cannabis, right?
My third album and my fourth album, I had a collaboration with Cannabis. Yep, we did Warpoint together, and then we did Six Blancas together. Yeah. No, I've been a fan since Type 2, so. Oh wow! Yeah, fantastic. I appreciate it. Well, he's my seafood, so okay. Shout out to Grandmaster Cannabis. So
nice.
That's awesome. Thanks, Greydon. Nate, you're back again. I don't think we gave you a real opportunity to talk a little bit about you last time you were here. So why don't you tell folks a little bit about you and where you're connected to EE Studios?
Yeah, I'm Nate, Natronix. I started doing Machinima a couple years ago, doing commercials for Elite Expeditionary, which was an org that I started. I have a background in film. I work as a screenwriter director in the real world. Before that, I was a military pilot, so I didn't get started in that stuff till I was about 30. I'm about 39 now, so been doing that for quite a while now. And EE Studios was born from making commercials for my org, and then I saw a Sonic Temples, who made some Machinima Heart Space back in the day, and I came across that, and it's the first time I saw the potential of what Machinima could be in Star Citizen. And then I made Overclocked, and then sort of spawned out into all these different things with these characters. And now I'm working with Zark Media, who's another great Machinima maker, a news broadcaster too, and we've sort of been fostering HubNet, which is a community where anybody, doesn't matter who you are, can hop in, and if you want to be involved or just see what's going on or have people help with your projects or collaborate, music, sound, whatever it is, it's a very positive community that we've got there where you can come and collaborate on Machinima, music, really anything. So that's what I'm
question,
about.
Nate.
Yeah.
Did you meet Zark on our Machinima show, or had you met him like before?
So I was a fanboy of Zark's, and he started HubNet, and then I popped in and was like, hey, I want to help collaborate with you on this and help it grow. And it was in HubNet where I really first started talking with Zark.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, I can tell you now, if you see any applications with a guy named Fastcart, just ignore that. Just skip over anything that comes from that guy, okay? All right, I'm just teasing. I got to pick on Fastcart because he's not here. Oh, he's here. Trust me. He's guarantee you. Just watch the chat. He'll pop up any moment.
We got a quarantine on his jokes, though. So.
There we go. See, I get no respect. There he is right there. Okay. And last but not least, Grim, tell some folks about you who may not know you.
Yeah, I'm Grim. Also come from the film and television world. I've been doing this stuff since about 2001, primarily on the visual effects side, film and television, all the way from independent film to huge Hollywood features. And now I worked as a director, art director / director, in primarily commercial work. Starjump was primarily started to just do unique content. The goal was to try to do stuff that no one else was doing, or maybe, no one else was doing it at scale. So we had some big plans like a fleet viewer and some ship review shows, but primarily it started out with me doing that Drake cinematic that we showed at the beginning. It was very rough. I think I'd only been playing Star Citizen for a couple of months when I started doing that project. We've done several more of those, and I have my new ship review show I just launched, which has been pretty big, which I'm pretty proud of. And then obviously a lot of people know us just from Starjump Fleet Viewer, which is myself, VMXEO, and Starlet. Some of you all know them within the community. They were a big help on that. And there's other projects like that in the works as well.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. Well, listen, we want to give you guys what the format of the show is going to be, because these are just such great production film people. We tried to put this in the context of the world that they work in. This is not a completely detailed breakdown on how productions are done, but we did just take certain categories. Each one of them will probably touch on some of these. They may not touch on all of them, so we just ask that you would just kind of follow along. We are going to look at some videos leading into these as well. But very first thing we want to do, I'm going to change the screen here and get rid of that. Did I push the wrong thing? I probably did, didn't I? Yeah, I did. I went to the end of the show. Isn't that great? We're done. Thanks for coming, folks. We appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. We appreciate you being here. I pushed the wrong button. There we go. I got too many icons to look the same. So what we're going to do is open up talking about, let me think. Should we do the video first, or should we do... No, let's talk about the stuff first. We're going to talk about pre-production. And I'm going to just leave this open to Starjump, Graydon, Nate, whoever wants to talk about it, if you've got something to say about the particular area. We've got concept writing, script editing, casting. Just give us a little bit. Nate, I'll start with you, then I'll go to Gray, then I'll go to Grim. Where do you work with these elements? And if so, which ones do you work with? How much time do you spend into it? And maybe just talk about that a little bit.
So I approach it differently than I do in the professional realm. When it comes to coming up with a concept, I usually do a quick outline. so basic strokes. I don't write a script because Machinima is so unforgiving, and you sort of I like to flex when I'm in the game on how I'm capturing stuff that I want to capture. So I don't particularly do shot lists and stuff. But when it comes to story development, I usually just sort of do a basic outline on like the Notes app in my phone or on my computer, and then I'll come up with basic dialogue, very loosey-goosey, and then I'll go in the game and sort of I've done it enough times in the game now and in real life where I sort of know what I need and how to get it, and it's just a matter of flexing with the game. Because I find that especially in Star Citizen, if you get too precious about what you want, you might end up killing yourself trying to get it because of all the things that we know about the game. But I don't write scripts for Machinima. I just do basic outlines, and then I sort of feel it out in the game. And honestly, a lot of the times I get my best ideas when I'm in the game during the shoot, which is the opposite of what I do in real life, where because there's a lot of money and time and everything's on the line, you have to plan it out. But in Machinima, it's just fun. I go in there, it's a break for me. It's a hobby. It's a way for me to sort of do whatever I want with no budget concerns. And that's sort of how I approach it up front.
Okay. What about casting? Because you do have actors in your stuff as well. So how do you get folks to be in your stuff?
When I started, since this was a little passion project, really, like the first overclock thing and the commercials for my org, I just used people in my org.
Okay.
And my wife is an actress, so I used her as the voice of Ava. And then slowly I would pull people in from the Star Citizen community who would email me or reach out and say, hey, I want to act in this thing, or I want to do voice acting. And they would send me their reels. And I'm all about including people from the community and fostering that community. So basically, people would reach out to me once my work was out there. And I slowly have found this great group of people who are reliable and really great actors. And more come in every week. So that's sort of how it happened at first.
Okay. All right, cool. Greydon, I'm going to jump to you. We're going to see some of your work in a little bit. Actually, we're going to see two pieces from you, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe talk a little bit about how you get your process of when you're ready to go into work.
Oh, that's a great question. So it's interesting because, I've been making music for so long that sometimes I forget about some of the preheating processes that go on and getting kind of set up and getting into the right mind state and what the direction of your music is and everything. A lot of times now I can, whether it's production or whether it's writing lyrics, I can essentially now do it just muscle memory, right? But for those people who are, I affectionately call white belts, right? Come into the gym, they throw on a gi, give them a white belt, and they're on the mats, right, getting choked out. But the thing is you have to set the conditions that your art. You have to set the conditions for your art. And if you know that you're going to be creating something that is for machinima type content, then your art has to match that. And so if I know that going in, it makes it much easier for me to try to create that style, that pacing, that energy. If it's up tempo, if it's down tempo, if it's traditional 4/4, if I got to use a weird time signature, then so be it. But all of that comes from analyzing early in the process. Hey, this calls for this emotion, this calls for this urgency, this calls for this mood. And once you assess that, now we have ChatGPT that could just tell us like, hey, what should I do with this, right? But before you'd have to be like, well, what should I do with this? And you'd really consider how many different approaches you could take for this particular piece of content, this scene, this story that's attempted to be told. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because you raised the issue of ChatGPT, and Jade and Kalrati, you guys can jump into at any point. You mentioned about that, and I'm what do you see that as the impact in the sense of creativity? There's some technical benefits to it. Do you see it as something to inspire, or do you see it as something that actually becomes the replacement?
If you're asking me directly, and I may not be the best person to ask about this because I'm kind of team AI at this point. I don't think humanity is doing the best case of making the case as to why it shouldn't be replaced, even though we all know we don't want to be replaced. I don't think we're making the best case as to why we shouldn't be replaced. But I say that in jest because a lot of people are worried about what you're asking about. You know, no one wants to be made obsolete, especially people who are creatives. I think we thought it was going to happen in reverse. I think we thought it was going to be the physical manual labor jobs that were going to be automated by basic AI, you know, or artificial narrow intelligence, and that the creative jobs, the musicians, we were safe. Nope. They got AI software now making Jay-Z rap songs that sound just like him. I'm sure someone's going to make one that sounds just like me, or just like Eminem, or just like Cannabis, or whoever. Ultimately, if you're a productive person, I believe it's going to make you more productive. Right. But if you're competing with it directly, your biology against this technology, you will always lose because it just doesn't have the limitations that your biology has.
So, let me do a part two to that question. So let's say you write a piece, like I was listening to some of your work and you've got voiceover things going in the background. And let's say you decide to use Chat GPT and you put it in there. Would you take it and say, that turned out good. Okay, let me move on. Or would you take it and say, that inspired me to knock it up a notch or to change what I did, and you would still go with yourself? Or would you just be satisfied? Do you think you'd be satisfied, or would it always be 50-50 depending on which one is better? How would you look at it?
So I have to frame this by saying the rules that I'm playing by is the rules of hip hop, which is as long as you're dope, you can do anything you want, right? So if it comes out of Chat GPT and it's just dope right off the bat, if I put it on the track, and it's dope, right? No one's gonna be mad. If it's whack, people are gonna be like, yo, that's garbage. And most people can tell what's dope and what's not. Me personally, I like to make my stuff unique. I like to be unique. I like to be an individual. You know, I don't like, you know, groupthink or you know, partisan ideology, politics and stuff. Like, I'm just very much an individual. I believe the individual is the greatest minority. So for me, it's like I try to make things as unique and individual to me whenever I use AI, because I know that that is a one-off. That is a one-way street. That is a one-time process that no one can replicate because they can't recreate the conditions for that one-off piece of art that we're talking about.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, I would say I'm with Graydon I'm on Team AI, as you all probably already know. But yeah, I look at things like ChatGPT and other advanced language models as tools right now, right? Like eventually they will replace a lot of people, right? But for now, I see it as like creative assistant, right? Like, somebody that you can like bounce an idea off of, or say, hey, what would you come up with? How about, like, I mean, okay, we were talking about, hip hop and rhymes, right? Like everybody probably remembers like Rhymer, the site, like where you needed something to rhyme with something. You could go to Rhymer, put the word in, and it tell it how many syllables. So I look at Chat GPT. It's just a much more advanced version of that when it comes to writing like lyrical content. But it's going to be better. It's going to get better, and that's its whole point. It refines itself based upon what our responses are to whether we like what it generated, right? So, it's only a matter of time. You can't fight the future, right? You can be opposed to it, but ultimately we're creating our successors, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think competition is good. I think if it means that human artists have to bring it up a notch, like that's just more good art. So that's my rant.
Can I make one quick point on that too as well, which is what is actually we're talking about that's replaceable. And I think that when we talk about the actual skill set of something being replaceable, machines and machine learning will probably be able to replace or make obsolete most of the things that we're talking about. But your experiences as an individual, you as a unique experience in this world is not replaceable. So there's still value in you being you. As GreydonSquare, AI might be able to replace my rhymes. It might be able to make music like me, but can it be me? Even if it was a direct copy of me, there's value in the original. So for me, I'm not worried because my job is literally being GreydonSquare.
Exactly.
That's my job. My job is not to do something. My job is not to go somewhere and be this. It's to be GreydonSquare.
Mhm.
And if a machine can be GreydonSquare, then that's my fault. Because that must mean I must be living a mundane life that the AI can just, copy real quick. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
And I'm glad we looked at it from that aspect of where it is now, the possibilities of what it could be later, the tool aspect. And it's not just with audio. We're going to see these things happening with other areas of media as well. So that's great stuff. Grim, let me jump to you. Any thoughts about pre-production?
Well, for me, my cast is generally the ships, primarily because that's what I focus on, whether it's the cinematics or Fleet Viewer or Ship Show or anything like that. The ships are kind of my cast. So in that regard, my casting and all that centers around what ships can I focus on, what state are they in, because I like to do a lot of the unreleased ships. So it's figuring out where the models are and what I need to do to get those models into a good place. And so weirdly enough, even though that is production work, it's also very much pre-production work for me. There's a lot of research involved figuring out, what it will require to get those up to par to do something with. And so the concept, the writing and all that sort of comes after the casting for me, which is kind of weird. I got to figure out what ships are usable, what I can do something with, and then once I've figured out what that list is, then I can start building something around it, right? And it's why, like, for example, the Drake cinematic was so kind of generic, where it just sort of showed each ship because those were the ships I had to work with, and then when I did the Aegis one, I was able to go a little bit more into an actual narrative, and then the next one will be even more narrative driven with like voice actors and stuff, because for me, it's because I'm specifically focusing on the ships as characters. It kind of throws my entire production pipeline out of whack because, like Nate was saying, in the commercial film world where I come from, there is a very strict pipeline for how those productions roll out, and very rarely is that deviated from, except for maybe in Hollywood where a big movie star will get attached to something before there is something, in those rare instances. But generally, because of the money and the budgets and time constraints and stuff, there is a strict timeline that plays out. So I do it completely the inefficient way of doing a production is how I run all my productions.
Okay.
And on the topic of AI, I mean, I'm really excited by AI and have looked into it and played around with it. I do have some concerns just being an old school artist, but I think there are all those, kind of get off my lawn sort of concerns where I don't know how it's going to play out. The biggest one is probably credit for me. Like how are people going to get appropriate credit from where some of this stuff is being ultimately sourced? Not just particular pieces of art and creative, but like trends and stuff like that. And then I have some concerns about the artists that will come before us, the ones who, for example, aren't GreydonSquare yet. You know what I mean? The ones that will come, will start creating their craft, while this technology is already in place. They're the ones that are going to really have to navigate it because it's going to be a whole new world. And I tell young artists all the time, I speak to schools all the time. I just recently spoke to an art and design college class, and one of the things I told them was that the production world you'll come up in is completely different than the one I came up in. And I probably have no good advice for you, unfortunately, because I'll be a dinosaur and extinct. And, it just will. It's just the way it is. The technology moves way too fast for any one person. So,
yeah, there's a great example of Disney. When the movie, for those of you who are old school enough, remember the movie Tron came out. When it was presented to Disney, their animators that have been around Disney forever hated it. They fought with it with a passion because they saw computer technology as being threatening to the way animation had been done in the past. And eventually, over time, it became accepted, But there is sometimes the threat is a threat that's not real. It's when it's created, right? It's like we see this coming and we think we're going to, as you mentioned, Graydon, people think they will become obsolete when that's not the case. The question becomes, how does that elevate us as humans to the next level? Sometimes technology is designed to make us no longer be chained to the old stuff, but now say, what's the next thing we can do? And that can happen in any form, especially even in art. So yeah, very cool.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Let's take
there may be some value that comes out of in the future when AI does have such a dominant role in creative pursuits, whether a tool or as like completely original content driven by AI, there probably will be a value to like stuff created by an actual person or personality. You know what I mean? And I think you just may end up with two sources of content maybe in the future. You know?
Okay.
There's already a little bit of that happens actually
Now, right,
behind
it
the
does.
scenes that a lot of people aren't realizing.
All right, let's take a look at EE Studios. Nate, we've got one of your videos we're going to drop in real quick, and then we're going to come back and talk about production next. So let's take a quick look at that, okay?
Okay.
Hi, I'm in 204. I'd like to order a citrus beef torpedo, please. What are you even doing down there? Yeah, I know it's an apartment. You know what? I'll just get it myself, thank you. Oh, it's recording? Are you an aspiring filmmaker? A creator? Are you lost in your ideas and feel overwhelmed by everything you want to make? Well, HubNet has a solution. And the bright and beautiful minds behind shows like Redline and Overclocked are here to tell you all about it.
Natronix here, the lead producer at EE Studios, coming at you from our home base at High Course Station. Flix Mix events are designed to help creators realize their storytelling potential.
Hot dogs!
Ranging from development discussion to tackling more logistically challenging production needs.
Hot dogs!
HubNet producers bring a wealth of production knowledge and experience to the table and will help manage the process so creators can more easily focus on their artistic needs.
Hot dog! Hot dog!
Flix Mix events also double as social opportunities to help foster a sense of community among fellow creatives in the verse.
God, would you shut up?
Yo, it's Ava from Overclocked. A few more things to note. If you're a creator, it's best to show up prepared. If you need help, ask for help in the support center before the day. Some dude wanted a bunch of guys in the same uniform, so he coordinated with folks and got everything ready beforehand, which saved time on the day. Also, no matter who you are, it's best to show up early for Flix Mix so producers can work out a plan based on people's needs. If you don't need help, it's okay to be late. You'll just be cycled in wherever they need you. The goal is to help as many people as possible as efficiently as possible. If no one needs help, then it just turns into happy hour. That's okay, because I like happy hour. You're supposed to be dead.
That's right, Ava. The Flix Mix events here on HubNet are open for anyone to attend. So hop on and join the creative and helpful people that make out the core of our community. I'm Oliver Zark. Join us on HubNet where every day is a show.
Thank you, Coffee Gaming, for that sub. Thank you so much. We do appreciate that. Sorry we missed it, but thank you so much. We are going to continue with where we left off at. Starjump Grim had to leave. He had a family issue pop up, so keep him in your thoughts, but he's doing okay. But we are going to, as you guys just finished, we just got finished watching Nate's video that he did for HubNet. Nate, why don't you talk a little bit about, we said we're going to come out of pre-production and go into talking about production. How much time, a lot of times people ask this question, how much time does it take to put together a piece like that? I think there was a few minutes. How long was I think the running time on that might have been
10, 12?
Something like that. It was a little less than that, I think. But yeah, how long does it take you to do the shooting and everything? Now, we won't get into editing, just the shooting aspect and getting it done.
Shooting it's probably maybe a couple hours per scene. So I think maybe there were, I don't know, 5 scenes in there, maybe 4. So 8 hours.
Okay.
Give or take, just for the shooting. And that was a collaboration between me and Zark. The thing is, when you do a collaboration like that, we had to decide who's going to take lead on this. So we ended up deciding that I would take the lead and do all the editing and sort of, he would film his part, but we would talk about what that would be. And we decided he would intro and exit the piece, which was more of a pre-production thing. One thing I did want to say about pre-production, though, that I forgot to mention is that's different than the real world is we have to get all the sound recording, all the performances before we shoot, because we FOIP puppeteer off of a rough editing of the performance that we put together. So that's something that's, I think some people, I always get asked that, how do you record so clearly in game? We're not recording voices in game. We do all our performances beforehand. Well, I do. And then you edit in the best ones and you sort of get a rough assembly, and then you go in the game. And let me tell you, during production, puppeteering FOIP in game to a performance that you've pre-edited is one of the hardest things to do. As you can imagine, it's glitchy. The camera always doesn't. You have to constantly recalibrate the camera, and there's all these different things to do. But production, I would say, of all the phases, is the most stressful for me because of the game.
Okay. And I noticed you had, have some unique music behind there. Sometimes people just default to using some of Star Citizen's music, right? But you were using some unique music behind there for scoring. Do you use a service? You have somebody you work with in HubNet that helps pull music for you? How do you get your scoring?
So I know Zark has a service called Epidemic Sound that he pays a monthly subscription.
Yep.
Yeah. For me, my big thing with Overclocked, for example, I wanted avant-garde soundscape type music, and I didn't want anything that sounded traditional. So what happens is I will look on YouTube for what I'm like, the kind of stuff I want. And most of the time, if you reach out to the creator of whatever music you find, usually there's a company involved, and you let them know. In my case, I'm not monetized. It's a niche project. I'm okay with them running ads so they can profit off of it. Most of the time, people say, yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay.
And then some of the music is like public domain, or like some of it's really old, so it's public domain. But my approach, you got to be willing to not make money, and you have to be willing to let other people run ads on your stuff.
Okay.
So that's how I do it with the music.
Kalrati, you've been quiet tonight. You got any questions you want to ask about? Because we've watched EE Studio stuff. We've watched it on our Thursday show, and we've kind of watched the progress of their production. You got any questions or anything for them?
Yeah, as Nate actually started talking about it, it just came into my mind with regards to some of the production, the difficulties in terms of the lengths. Do you normally find yourself having to shoot something across patches or so? And, if so, what's the frequency like? Because I know that some of the Machinima makers, they sometimes will shoot, productions or record footage, sometimes across 3 major patches. And as a result, they may have to record the ending in the beginning. And sometimes because of how the shaders may be, they may have to do certain balances on that. Do you have to do all that? Or is it normally, that part isn't all that difficult?
For me, my particular style is I usually get things done in one chunk of time. So if I do an overclocked episode, I do it all in one 7-day stretch. I don't take breaks. I literally, my real life job is untraditional. So I have periods where I have stretches of time where I have the time to sort of knock something out. And if I feel inspired, I will literally hunker down and pull a 100-hour week and do an episode all in that stretch. I try to avoid doing stuff over patches, but I do know. So right now, there's a guy named Jake Foley I've worked a lot with. He's a great, very talented guy, voice actor, Machinima creator. He's actually directing the next Overclocked episode, which is the first time I've ever let anyone direct something of my creation that's not me. And he is shooting right now over this patch, and it's been a nightmare. I do know the Adrift guys, who I'm a big fan of. I know they spread their shoots out over many patches like you've described. And one thing I know an issue that they've run into where they were asking in HubNet was, where did the Starfarer space wreck go? because we need that for our shot. And everyone's like, I don't think there is one anymore, or there wasn't when he was asking. So for me personally, I get that stuff done. I say, okay, no, am I going to be able to do this whole thing straight with no breaks? And then I'll do it. That's how I work to avoid the stuff that you're sort of implying might be an issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And I listened to, we're going to watch one of your videos next. And it's one where you're just kind of doing a very, for lack of a better term, it's a very chill narration through the video that we have.
Which video?
Let me see if I can get the title for it here. Give me 1 second. It was the one called, no, that's the music. Where's it at?
Talking about Omniverse?
No, it's not. No, it's one. Give me 1 second here. I'm sorry because I don't have the title here for it. It is City.
Oh, City on the Type of Forever?
No, that's the one where we've got the music. It was one you did. Give me 1 second. I'm going to your page now. It was the Unified Federation.
Oh, where I was talking about why it's the official game of the GU organization. Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Was that something you scripted out? Was it just something you free flowed on? How did you pull that together?
So interestingly enough, I had no experience in really video editing or anything like that. I come from complete, music audio engineering. I went to school for audio engineering and was for, almost a decade Pro Tools 210 certified and the whole nine, right? So I had invested all my time into audio engineering. No real time doing video work. So when I decided to do that video, when I did, I was actually learning the software that I was using as I was making that video. So it wasn't like I had a lot of experience, but I knew what I wanted, and I have I'm very stubborn. If I need to do something or I want to do something, I will literally just say, I'm not going to get up from this chair until I figure out how to do that, even if I forget to eat and, the whole nine. So I think that's what the original pre-production that went into that video was. But now I have a little bit more of experience, so I know how to get into, okay, I want to create this video and I need these scenes, and I can request these particular scenes from my guys and they'll send me that stuff. So that's kind of what went into that particular video. But that was my first video I had ever done like that.
All right. Well, I enjoyed it. I'll let you say that now. So awesome. Yeah, let's take a look at it real quick, okay?
Well, let's do it. Are you sharing your screen still?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll bring it up.
Somewhere in the G universe.
In the cave, we must be very careful not to offend the gods.
Wanted, Schrodinger's cat, dead or alive, proclaims the cosmic guardian that's embedded in time. I've been perusing information since the blank epic, and 13 billion years later, I remain epic. You probably fly on complex planes if you feeling me. My rhyme sequences escape me and race to infinity. Lyrically, what I spit is self-similar. Energy within every rhyme and next syllable. You know he's the next Mr. Rex, so let's killable. Don't spit if you can't generate a fresh millable. Every rhyme that I kick displays a fractal, revealing hidden landscapes and different scaling patterns. Star view, no, it's a galaxy rise, but appears as a bottomless pit with a maddening dive. To us, a black hole's just a gravity slide. We went about our lives as the last reality died, but you weren't here yet. You weren't even the fluctuation of quantum weirdness. You were perfecting art, song, and lyrics. Our earliest autolex surpassed the abilities of your god's best. You don't even have a math for the silliness of the object.
We must be very careful not to offend the gods.
The Mandelbrot set. It's a mathematical equation which leads us towards the
There are things we cannot do, words we cannot say. We must be very careful not to offend the gods.
By the time you're type 2, you are immortal. This is what we would see if we had eyes to see it.
our existence on your move. A compendium, but you can only reach it when you're on the shrooms. You type once just defeated your flesh, thinking you fresh, while we keep planet eaters as pets. Early on, you almost killed yourselves. The craft you built might as well be equipped with sails. Compared to us, you're just snails. Adjust to the scale. We get to meet every alternate version of ourselves. Travel the Palladian cosmic ruins while snacking on extra dimensions nobody uses for amusement. In three-dimensional time, where we jump forward, freeze moments, even rewind. You speak of divine, while we just see a primitive mind trying to explain what it can't in limited rhymes. We are the reflection of life in the night view, a galaxy rise. This is what awaits you at Type 2.
You must be very careful not to offend the gods.
This strange-looking object is the Nantronix set. When order meets chaos.
There are things we cannot do, words we cannot say.
Nothing known to science can destroy a Type 2 civilization. Type 2. By the time you're Type 2, you are immortal. Type 2. Some of the images are incredibly beautiful and are going to have a great impact on artistic design in the next decade or so. I found what looked like black holes, and I'd like to...
My apologies. I gave him the wrong title. That was Galaxy Rise, correct, Graydon? Or did we lose him?
Oh no, you're still here. My video
went out.
Yeah.
Okay.
My video started acting
Today
crazy.
is technical gremlins today. But that was Galaxy Rise. I hope you guys, I really like Kalrati. What'd you think?
Oh man, so many ideas, so many thoughts kept swirling into my head with regards to the inspiration behind it, with regards to inspiring other things as well, and pretty much bringing people who, who are interested into space and space games and those things into this kind of atmosphere, through a different means. And I really found it really awesome, with the way he actually utilized different aspects of cosmology, of astronomy, and kind of mingled the whole hip hop and all that musical genre. And so many approaches, it was fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that.
Great. How long did it take you to produce that roughly?
So that particular song was produced by someone else. It was sampled, and there's a whole controversy about sampling, and even specifically that song. There's a whole thing we can get into. I'm not going to, but that song was sampled by someone else and produced by someone else. And I could only imagine as a producer myself, the amount of hours that it would have taken to not only sample that, but to flip the sample and, to be able to remake it in your own individual way. But normally when I'm producing, right, when I am, on the MPC, we were talking about AI earlier, this is where the two types of content you could see diverging. Whereas I'm on the drum machine, right? Like I'm actually hitting the pads and I'm sampling, I'm chopping stuff up myself. Soon, obviously, someone will be able to just type in, I want my beat to sound like this, with a little bit of this. Give me a Jade beat that sounds like some Swiss Beats and some Dr. Dre from 1997. And it'll be an original work, right?
Right.
So the amount of time it would take me now and what it took that person to do Galaxy Rise is probably about 2 to 4 hours.
Okay.
To produce that beat, and I mean, not just throw it together, but also mix it and tidy it up and make it clean and stuff like that. So
nice. Jade, you shared some stuff with us earlier as to some things you thought about Graydon before you even talked to him after you saw his work. And why don't you share what it was? I'm sure he'll get a nice little smile out of it when you tell him about his background. His background.
Oh yeah. So yeah, like it's pretty clear. Like you have like a physics background. Listening to your lyrical content as somebody in the field, let me just put it this way: there's a lot of fans of you that are actually like in astrophysics and astrobiology, right. And from your community, right? So for me, like one of the things that I am a big champion of is reaching people with science through other mediums, and especially the fusion of science and art, right?
Right.
It's science and music, and you'll find most like postgrads have like some type of artistic background, like that are in these fields, like either visual or, you know, music or whatever. But yeah, it's as far as, you know, your work, like just being able to flip the Kardashev scale. For those that don't know, the Kardashev scale is like a rating of civilization types. We're considered a type 0 now on that scale. You may have heard it from like Cosmos or whatever. But yeah, like just basing like all of your, you know, like albums along that scale, like that was like I was just mind blown by a lot of, you know, things. I'm sorry I'm fangirling here, but
no, it's okay. I mean, hey, fangirl away. I don't mind.
Yeah, and like I said, like, you know, I became a fan during Type 2, and then to find out that you had a Star Citizen, you know, like you had this community that didn't come from being people playing Star Citizen, right?
Right.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
So that is interesting because, you know, Grand Unified is an organization that is 14 years old at this point. You know, we have origins back in the old culture wars of the late 2000s with the atheist movement and stuff like that. And so we all kind of came from that culture, that environment where we were debating with, you know, different people, and there was this, you know, just big ideological conflict at the time. And so out of that community, out of you know, the people who were around at that time, the earliest stages of GU was born, and that evolved into many years later and different iterations and flavors of Grand Unified. And the Unified Federation, the Star Citizen org we're talking about, is simply another flavor of Grand Unified. It is, you know, if you look at all the houses in GU, from, you know, the Giannis Leth to Low Technology, Progeny of Ancients, Valkyrie, Reaper Legion, right? Like you have all, and the Unified Federation is simply one of those groups. And so where we kind of didn't have to recruit from the perspective of like, hey, are you into this video game? No, these are people who are already into the community aspect of Grand Unified. That's just the medium through which we articulate the dynamics of our relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely love that.
So when people call me captain, they're not calling me captain of the org. They're calling me captain of the community.
Yeah, know? that's what I thought.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Very
and I love the fact that you named your starship after Nichelle Nichols.
Oh, of course. Of course, the first lady of science fiction.
Absolutely.
I mean, she and for let me fanboy a little bit on Nichelle Nichols. So when I was 10 years old, I grew up in the system, right? I grew up in group homes in California, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Whoopi Goldberg came to one of the group homes that I was in, and I met her when I was like 10 or whatever. And if you look at Whoopi Goldberg's story, it's directly connected to Nichelle Nichols, because Whoopi Goldberg saw Nichelle Nichols as a child on TV, and it directly impacted her. Well, Nichelle Nichols had a direct link to Dr. Martin Luther King, who, when Nichelle Nichols was going to quit the show of Star Trek because she felt like she was not being utilized, he said,
can't go.
Don't you quit that show. You represent us in the future.
Yep. And Mae Jemison, you know.
Right, and Mae Jemison, right, who became the first, you know, Black female astronaut because of Nichelle Nichols in Star Trek. So for me, naming the ship, naming our flagship after Nichelle Nichols is the least I could do out of respect. It's about putting respect on people's name. Everybody want respect put on their name. Put some respect on Nichelle Nichols' name when we speak about her, because that woman is the first lady of science fiction as far as I'm concerned. And there's not too many more women with greater impact in pop culture than Nichelle Nichols.
Well, I'm going to cut in. My daughter's name is Neota, if you know what that means.
Oh, I do.
So there you go. There you go.
Yeah,
all right.
That was Haru's first name.
That's her name, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and get over to Grim. Grim, thank you. You made it back. We hope all is well there, and thank you for coming back, because we want to get your thoughts here on production and shooting. We're going to show your video. And then after we get through looking at it, you can talk about time, and then we're going to go into our section on post-production. So let's just do that, okay? Here we go.
My view of this.
Oops, nope, that's the wrong one. Where is it at? There we go. Okay, we are back. Grim, we opened up with that earlier and we're just kind of looking at it again. And you talked about how this was like one of the first things, the early days of you kind of getting into this. What was your time frame with production on this and without editing? Let's just say just getting the cinematics and stuff together. What was the time like for that?
Well, whenever I watch that, I kind of cringe a little bit just because I would never do it that way now, and I'd have much better lighting and textures and stuff. But again, I'd only been playing Star Citizen for about 3 months when I started that. But I would say, yeah, it's like 4.5 minutes long, I think, 1080p. So production was pretty quick on it. I think it was around 2 months, so it didn't take that long. Most of the work was most of the work went into ships that were unreleased, which is kind of the bane of my existence, are all these concept ships and having to get those up to snuff, because the only thing we have available to us are the hollow models, which lack detail, they lack textures, they lack a lot of things. They usually lack turrets and all kinds of stuff. So, getting at that time when I did that, ships like the MSR, the Corsair, the Kraken for sure, all those ships, the Vulture, none of those were out, or anywhere near complete. So I had to take those, rig them, texture, all that kind of work. So it's about I would say about 2 months from start to finish, and probably about $2,000 in rendering. Because I was pretty inefficient with my models and my geometry. Again, I was just smashing stuff together. Later on, when I did the Aegis cinematic, which was 9.5 minutes long, which was another huge mistake I made and I'll never do again. When I did that one took about 3 months. And but I was able to get 9 minutes out of that 3 months because I did things a lot more efficiently, and I brought in some outside help to deal with the models. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to transition from this because we heard some background on each of these pieces that these great creators have done. We're going to talk about getting toward the final stages here of post-production.
Yep.
Whether you guys do anything in relation to dailies or how much time you spend in the editing. I know, Graydon, you talked about it was one thing to get all of the tracks down, but then there's a separate thing, which is the editing, mixing, mastering side of things. So let me go to Nate first on that, then I'll go to Gray, then we'll go to Grim. Nate, what about you as far as once you've shot everything, you've got it all there, how much time are you spending after that, putting all the audio, the visuals, if it's any effects that have to go in, how much time do you spend at that level?
Yeah, I edit as I go. So I'll usually start the day shooting and then I'll edit after that and usually it's post-production is the most fun part for me, but it's probably 2/3 of the effort. So if an overclocked episode takes, let's say, 60 to 100 hours to make, 2/3 of that is post-production. I don't do dailies. What I do is I usually have 2 to 4 takes per shot. I like to have a little bit of head and tail on each shot. Some people I know like to just record and have hours of footage. That stresses me out. I just have a few. So in terms of dailies, I maybe have 2 to 3 shots I'll go back and look at and see which one had the best performance and so on and so forth. Editing, like I said, I edit as I go. So mix that in. About 2/3 of the entire process is editing. Mixing, I very rarely use in-game sound. I usually have at least 20 to 30 layers deep of sound design, which takes up a lot of the time of post-production to really make the sounds appropriate and unique and fun. And you tell, everyone in this room knows you really can tell a story with sound alone.
Yeah.
And then mastering, I just do basic Premiere coloring. In terms of mixing, it's all in Premiere Pro with their built-in mixing stuff. And then usually I'll export it and give it a listen and a look a couple times, catch little things here and there, and rework it. But overall, this whole process is 2/3 of the work.
Wow.
I have a real quick question for you. You were talking about the difficulties or challenges with recording FOIP in game.
Yeah.
What percentage of the time that's allocated to a project is taken up just by that?
I'd say they're the least efficient shot to get.
Yeah.
Because because of all the things we know about FOIP. So I would say in terms of production itself, filming shots, if you have a lot of FOIP, and I try not to hide behind it. I try not to have people wear masks too much and hide, because I think people want to see FOIP, and I think it's important to have those characters emote. It takes, in production, shooting the film, it takes probably, I'd say 50% of the effort goes to FOIP.
Wow.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah.
It's very painful sometimes.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, if anybody from CIG is listening, please
fix
these
it.
great creators that are doing amazing things, please, show it some love. We could make even better stuff. So yeah.
I'm thinking about the very first time we saw FOIP, and we freaked out and we laughed at the same time. It was, really scary, but we saw the possibilities, if nothing else, right? We saw the possibilities. Greydon, I want to go to you, and I want to go to a different channel now, because we showed the visual aspects of what you do, but I want to play a little bit of the audio side of what you do as well, because we just did a show last week. Jade was on with this one too, where we were talking about what is the future of broadcasting in the game. We've got games like GTA 5 where artists' music is actually incorporated into games.
Which is crazy.
Whether we'll see something like that happen in the future. We know that Machinima, and we've seen even CIG recently on even their shows like ISC, show commercials that have been made by the community, but we're also wondering whether music will be introduced. So I want to play a little bit from your piece. And why don't you give a little bit of background on this before I play it, City on the Type of Forever.
It's the song City on the Type of Forever? Or okay, so that was a song that I did on the last album that was the title track of the album, that was meant to kind of just give this sense of kind of flying through a futuristic city in your small little spaceship, and blasting your music in the little pod, like you would be in a cockpit in one of these ships. And I feel like the person who produced it, whose name is Akira, he really captured that sound of like this kind of neo-futuristic gliding through the city, or just entering the system, and you feel like you're entering into this place of awe, in this city of awe, all of this technological marvel, and all these different aliens that you now as a puny human have to contend with. So I think that's what I was trying to go with when it came to City on the Type of Forever.
Nice. Okay, let's listen to it for a little bit here.
Awesome.
My view of this, the reality that we find ourselves in, is that this is a computational cosmos. That we are one line of code in a very complex algorithm that is still being written. If you can step out of the old narratives, history, religion, and all those things, and even some philosophies, then you start to realize we are just one tiny sliver of this enormous computational thing that is happening. We don't even have a word for it yet.
Deep in the black where the secrets of earth, evil occurs. Despite this, we will emerge. Even if we gon' be purged, we gon' feel reaching at worst. Locate the enemy's vessel by use of the star map. No, we won't stop until we actually hear the enemy's treacherous barge crack. Right through the vacuum of space. Try to advance, they'll attach to your waist. Maddening angst. Escape, they're back in your face. Try to stay stagnant and safe, they will attack you in place. Soaking core glue on soup like a jacuzzi. Really no need to be moving. Multiple postulates, totally opposites. No need to believe the verses in uni. Follow me. Pristine, quantized in the 16 distinct minds with a dark matter fuel body. In speed when they move with a history that'll seem to be non-linear in logic. Under guise of reality, the most advanced ever seen or heard. With a legion that'll seem absurd. The ride in the battle of Voltino birds. Barely learned of the ancient inner spaces. Every version of wasted iteration. You can fuck with the culture if you want to and get a visit in the form of invasion. The Forerunners' predecessors. Seen everything holy to the worst malfeasance. Inner spatial and formless and state. One evolutionary step below the downstreamers.
All of that information was there in the Big Bang. That's the reason I say it's ancient. We are the new ones here. The cosmos is much, much older than we are. We are the infants, and we are just waking up, realizing that nature itself is geometric and made of code.
Repulsive energies act on us weird. No space, no matter, no time, but I'm here. This omniverse isn't really that tedious. Every event with an event preceding it. Nothing to do when an astral is near. Light speeded into you back in a year. All conventional defenses are meaningless. Nothing can escape it in the immediate. Avatars are bound completing the rules. With a pension, a menace, and 26 dimensions, freedom to move. Uninhibited, their means to pursue. Infinity Hotel, key me a room. In a city on the type of fortified levels of meaning and truth. Forever with the most scenic of views. Recursive ammunition, pre-fire for munition. Firing themselves with their own agency, will and volition. In defense of the high they assail. Climb up the scale with them, too high to survive if you fail. It was I who rebelled and defied these false gods. To share glimpse and the lies they would tell.
I know people are going to hate to hear this. When AI becomes self-aware, that is inevitable. AI, artificial intelligence, will eventually become self-aware. It will start integrating, start pulling things on its own for its own purposes.
Grab a hypercube and take it apart. In continuity straight from the start. Stage to embark, straight through the stars. Most baryonics don't make it this far. Cosmic nothingness if ever they leave. Stellar lattice is the letter they weave. Fluidly moving through human intuition. Go supernova whenever they please. Type 4, we were supposed to be past this. White holes at the source of the axis. Light added to the dark matter filaments. Type 3s couldn't tell it from magic. Seek another for the groupthink blacklist. Yeah. You really think of being from the void in between the many worlds that destroy lower Cartesian planes and outskirts? Wanna catch this? Savagery, complete with micro-dimensional mastery. Depleted vitals if you want to battle. Faculty of the Omniversal Academy. No, we don't know what makes up their anatomy. Elements to break the sanity of any human studying their family. The ascended under canopy.
I think there's only one direction.
All right, I'm gonna pull that down. Graydon, if you keep rolling that out, I'm gonna be listening to that when I'm flying in my 600i. I'm letting you know that now. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I'm liking it.
I appreciate it.
Let me ask you a question. And later on, we are going to talk about this where people can get to hear your music, because this is he has a full album, which is really, really great. And it's really good stuff. I got to listen to it this week. And again, just now, I'm digging this even more. Are you aspiring? Is this something that you're doing just because you just love the love of music, or is there a game plan, or, your mission to be able to do this merging you talked about of intellectual science, bringing that into artistry to introduce people to science in a different way? What's your plan with that?
Well, that's a good question. So I've been trying to do that. It's a part of the mission statement of Grand Unified Theory, as far as an org that we have. But my goal is to effectively, hopefully, help humanity and influence and inspire people to try to achieve Type 1 on the Cartesian scale. And I think that this is the next sociological and technological step in human evolution and civilization. And I think that if there was an active effort in order to kind of propel humanity in that direction, then I should be a part of that active effort. And since there wasn't really an active effort, I decided to create one on my own. Yeah, so for me, I think it was the plan was always to be able to do this for a living first, right? I don't, after the military, most people know when you get out of the military, you ain't working a traditional job unless you want to. That's not saying that right. you unless you want to, right? Because I know a lot of people who get out of the military and that's what they want to do. But a lot of us, we got out, I was like, man, I ain't taking no more orders from nobody else. I'm my own boss. Right. I'm my own company commander. I'm my own NCOIC. I'm my own OIC. Like, yeah. So the plan was to do that. Once I was achieved that around Type 2, once the Mandelbrot set came out, I was kind of playing with house money. Omniverse was a 30-song album that I did almost as a joke to myself. Like, there's no way, because Type 2 had 22 songs. It was on 2 discs back when we were listening to CDs. Right. Well, I said, how am I going to eclipse Type 2? There's no way I'm going to do, 30 songs. Originally, it was going to be 33 songs. I cut it down to 30. But I released a 30-song album. The only other person I ever heard do that was E40. So shout out to E40 for releasing he released like a 40-song album one time. I'm like, E40, you can't be doing that. You can't be just breaking the rules like that, bro.
Let me ask you a question. Crazy. Would that be something that would intrigue you if something like Star Citizen did say, hey, we want creators to produce music that's played in our bars, in our clubs? Is that something that you would lean toward?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just because Star Citizen is the perfect environment for that. not to knock the club scene or
No,
anything
no,
like
no.
that, but
Yeah.
no one's playing my music in the club, and that's
Mhm.
not because the music isn't good. It's just because it's the wrong atmosphere
Yeah,
for it.
and it fits
I'm sure
it.
anybody,
Yeah.
no one's thinking about technological marvels and aliens and whatever. So I feel like if they're gonna play it in a Star Citizen club or a Star Citizen bar, like I really appreciate that,
Yeah, that's
and
mhm.
that's what it was kind of designed for.
That's the space for it. Pardon the expression. Yeah, I'm digging it. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I like
I'd love to like walk into a club, somewhere in the Star Citizen universe,
that.
and like,
Hear that?
here's City on a Type of
Mhm.
Forever in
Yep.
the background.
Yep.
Like, it would just be amazing. And the fact that you're part of the community, and we know CIG does like to work deeply with the community. So yeah.
I do want to make one small point because I know there are fans of mine watching right now. That song that you guys played was actually called Astral Dawn. City on the Type of Forever is actually number 4 on that album, which is a completely different song. So when I was asking you, it was like, are you talking about the song or the album?
The album.
When
Yeah,
that song
that's the
came on,
album.
I was like, yeah, he was talking about the album. He wasn't talking about the song because the song is totally different feel
Yeah.
from that right there. I described that, and then that came on. I was like, oh well, we're going in this direction.
Yeah, I pulled the whole album down.
Slays.
Yeah, I pulled the whole album down, and that was the
slays.
opening track. So yeah, that's why. But thanks for clarifying that for us. Okay, we're gonna hit one more area here, and Grim has brought us some stuff here to talk about what happens in post-production as well. We've got a video that we're going to take a look at. So we're going to. Why is my Stream Deck on the wrong thing here? Give me 1 second, gang.
Yeah, before you kick this off, Griff, I could just lead it off with I'm prepping a bunch of stuff for a presentation next year that CIG will be at and stuff, and just kind of showing the breakdown of things. And all of this is a learning experience, and being on here with Nate and Graydon. The cool thing about the type of creators we are is that we all have things we can do just kind of across the board, but we all have these niches that we're like really skilled at.
Right.
And it's also kind of cool when you see this happen from time to time when different collaborators will sort of join up and combine forces. So someone who does music will join up with someone who does machinima or cinematics or something like that, and that's always really exciting. So it's cool to be on this show with these two guys.
Thank you.
But what we're going to look at, it was something I was prepping for something else, but I thought it was maybe interesting to the discussion. One of the last things I deal with is audio, and even though I went to school for audio engineering, I haven't done it in about 20 years, so I'm kind of terrible at it.
You ain't missing nothing. You ain't missing nothing.
So it's been a while, but the music, the funny thing with audio is that there's a lot of different layers in there. I know Nate talked about having, a whole bunch of layers in regards to the audio edits and stuff. And you'll see that here in this video. But, I essentially show a small snippet from the Aegis cinematic that has a lot of stuff going on, explosions, laser fire, music, all this stuff. And I show that snippet first with just the ambient and explosion noises. And then I show it again with all the laser fire in there, which is almost overwhelming because there's so many turrets going off. And then I show it one more time with all of the music passes combined with the sound design passes, because there's sound design and then there's music, right? So it just kind of gives you an idea of what it sounds like to me when I'm working on it before I even really know what the final music and stuff is going to be. So I just thought it was interesting to show on this show to give people a little bit of that perspective. But the same thing happens with visuals as well, especially with 3D rendering like I do. Most of the time, I only see things in very rough gray wireframe models all the way up until the last week or so of production, where I feel good about the shots, where I feel good enough about them to send them to the render farm, which is a cloud-based rendering service, which costs money, by the way. And I want to be 100% that those shots are locked before I pay money to render them, if that makes sense. The last thing you want to do is pay $75 for a big javelin scene to render when you aren't 100% sure. So for 90% of the time of me working on a job or a project like this, I call it a job, it feels like a job. One of these projects is it's all wireframe. The audio is very temp. I might be using just some rock song or some hip hop song or something thrown in there for a vibe, but the actual orchestral stuff isn't even in there yet. So either way, this video will kind of show you some of those layers.
Okie doke, here we go. I think. We're not getting any audio, are we?
Not here. Oh, yeah, there it is. And yes, I do sounds in space because Rule of Cool. I'm stealing it from CIG. This is with all the turret fire layered on. I had the actual sounds attached to each time the turret would fire, so it gets a bit overwhelming. Yeah, no music yet, though.
How much time would you estimate you're putting in to add these sound effects?
This was probably all done in the last week. Yeah. Give or take. Some scenes I do the sound while I'm working on the scenes. Just depends on like the choreography between the sound and the picture, how important it was.
Before you add the music, have you ever found yourself feeling like you need to have it sound less to actually get the vibe from the music, or do you always? Okay.
Yeah, you have to pull back a lot of times. So I'll sometimes pull back on a lot of the sound effects and just sound design in general once the music's in, because then the music is a whole other like layer of density, that's being applied. So it can get overwhelming really quick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with competing frequencies, I'm sure you remember this from audio engineering school, then you get, phased,
you do
situations, and you start really getting muddiness, and the clarity that what I heard in that was immaculate. Like that was incredible.
And I was racing against getting this out for Invictus, and that was a huge mistake because I set an artificial deadline that really had no meaning other than I wanted to release it for Invictus. But that put a lot of pressure, and I ended up not spending as much time on the sound as I should have. Now, moving forward, my next cinematic, I'm working with people to help me, and the audio is actually happening first. Music and stuff is starting along with like the actual writing process. So you learn a lot as the more of these you do. I'm sure the other guests feel the same, but the more you do, the more you're learning. So
this next one is the final product with
this
sound
is the final
and
mix
music, right?
with music and stuff, and you could you'll instantly see how dense it can get.
Cool.
And someone had mentioned too about not using a lot of the sounds from the game. That was something I did as well. I didn't use any of the sounds in game, especially weapon sounds, and I thought about it and I actually went through a period of capturing sounds. But the more I thought about it, again, things like appropriate credits and stuff are really important for me. And I was I really struggled with whether I wanted to borrow and lift things from the game like that. I felt the models were already a big thing that I'm lifting, so to speak. That's a lot of people's work, and I really try to prop up and send as many props to CIG's ship team as possible. On my show, Starjump Station, we've had several CIG ship designers on there, Paul Jones and Gavin Rothery and stuff, because I do want to celebrate the work they do and make sure that everyone knows that what I do is really kind of in homage or in honor of them and their work. But with the audio, that was just a place where I wasn't very familiar with the teams at CIG that handle that and the specific people and stuff within those teams. So I said, I'm just going to start completely from scratch. The negative to that is that it loses a little bit of those kind of natural handshakes with the game. Some of the sounds don't just immediately remind you of the game, but that's okay. When I told this to a lot of people, but when I did these like fan-made cinematics, they weren't supposed to be what you experience in game. They were really supposed to just give us all the fantasy of what this might be in the future. They weren't supposed to make it feel like you're watching someone play 318 or something, so.
Yeah, nobody's going to say, "Hey, the tractor beam doesn't sound like that." I don't think anybody's going to say that.
Yeah. So I've got a question. We could always, any of our guests can actually answer this. But sometimes, in my case, if I'm making a song, I would normally go with the melody first, or create the melody, which will lead into the lyrics. Or in this case, for those who are making machinima, you sometimes go with the song first, or then shoot the score. And sometimes you would do that to get the inspiration from the song. But do you normally do that? And anybody can answer. Or do you normally think of, do you think about the lyrics first or the narrative, and then the song complements that?
That's a really good question. The first thing that pops to my mind is the story always comes first, and everything builds around that. And that goes to the main character, dialogue, and then everything else builds around that. No doubt that I've found incredible inspiration from music, and in the commercials that I've made, the music sort of drives the visuals and stuff. But in the storytelling, like the noir movie and the Overclocked and all these other things, the music informs what story I'm trying to tell. And I try to always keep that everything built around that character and the dialogue and the things that they're talking about and the things they're doing. And like Grim said, it's hard because once you layer all these dang sounds in, and then you got to layer in a music track, it's like, oh man, it's like a whole behemoth that you're trying to squeeze in there and not flatten everything out.
Yeah, you should outsource that to a sound engineer so that you ain't got to do that.
Yeah. AI mixing and mastering is actually a thing now.
I thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm doing for the next cinematic that I'm working on, which is RSI focused, is I'm actually attaching certain sounds to certain manufacturers and ships so that to give them a bit more personality. So again, while it's not quite what Nate does with like voice casting and doing with VoIP essentially as character work, I sort of treat my ships like characters. So the only way I can do that is find a way to give them a voice, give them a personality that is unique to them. So, for example, in the RSI cinematic, I have this scene where a Legionnaire approaches another ship, and the Legionnaire has a wholly unique sound to its engines and its mechanics and stuff versus like an Origin ship or something like that. So it's been a lot of fun to experiment with audio in that way.
Okay. Well, listen, we're going to go to one other area, and I'm going to let Jade and Kalrati present some questions for this next session because they are community folks who are deeply into the Star Citizen community. And it's an area that a lot of people don't think about. We've been talking about the technical aspects of what Greydon and Natronix and Grim do, but then there's another side of it, and it's this side. It's the marketing, delivering their product, in other words, what platform or medium they're going to use, how to use social media. And then we'd also like to hear their thoughts about the reviews and comments they get, because we know those comments are just so inspiring. Greydon was telling us about a review he just got.
Well, one thing I will say is, as a major publication, they couldn't ignore the fact that I released an album.
There we go. There we go. There's some recognition at least there. So let's pick it up there. Nate, we'll start with you. We'll go to Greydon, then we'll go to Grim. Talk about your delivery process. Is YouTube it for you? Something else? Social media? What do you do with that? And then, of course, Let's do, you know what? I tell you what. Let's just do delivery first with each person, then social media, then reviews. Okay.
Yeah, delivery in terms of what do you mean exactly?
How do you put it out when you're done? Is YouTube your main way you're putting it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's only on YouTube for me. Is where all my stuff resides.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Graydon, what about you? What platforms are you using to get your stuff out?
So, I'm actually spread across a bunch of different platforms. My primary platform is probably Spotify for music, YouTube for my video stuff, but even YouTube I primarily use just for live streaming. And I haven't done any live streaming recently, but musically, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, I probably have about 60 to 80,000 monthly listeners between all my platforms. So that's what I try to focus on. And then I draw people from those listening bases to join the Discord in the Grand Unified community. And then from that community, we say, hey, we have a Star Citizen group. You know, if you're interested, you know, you're more than welcome to come hang out with us and stuff like that. But we don't even have it to where you can join from out. Like you couldn't join the UF from outside of GU.
Got you.
Like that's not even a thing.
Got you. Okay. Grim, how about you? What's your delivery methods here?
Well, this is all this stuff under marketing. It's a shame because I work in marketing. Is the stuff I need to improve on. Apparently, it's the worst. It's the one skill that I keep failing at with almost every release I do. I always make mistakes. Primarily, though, on the delivery front, it's YouTube. Just because of the long form stuff, YouTube's better suited. However, you know, we're starting accounts other places. I also just did a TikTok account where I've like done small cut downs. And a cut down is generally just where you take something and you slice out. Maybe it's, you know, 5, 10, 15 seconds, you know, as a little snippet of something. And we're pushing out stuff via TikTok and through some other channels, but YouTube is the primary.
That's your primary. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Natronix, you know, Grim just talked about a little bit about his social media. Are you doing similar things like that? Are you using TikTok at all? Or are you just are you pushing your social media in any form to draw people in to see your work?
Yeah, so in terms of promoting once something's released, I'll post in a few Facebook groups, like Star Citizen Facebook groups. I'll share on Spectrum, I'll share in the hub, the community hub. I'll post on in Discord. I don't have TikTok. Twitter, I really don't use. We have a Twitter account, but I've just never used it. I mean, I might promote it there. And then Reddit, which is always scary.
Okay.
And I can tell you when I first started putting stuff out there, because when you make something, you want people to enjoy it. You made this thing like, oh, it's fun. I want people to watch it and feel the fun that I felt. Well, in the beginning, a lot of people don't really watch it or they're harsh, right? But over time, when you start to develop a trust in your brand and the stuff you're putting out, it gets a little easier, I'd say. But man, in the beginning, you get all kinds of weird. I know we're going to get to that later, but I've got some stories to share there too.
Okay, fair enough. Graydon, how about you? You gave us some of the platforms as far as media platforms. What about the social media platforms? Which ones are you more focused toward?
So social media, for me, I usually use things like Instagram, Twitter, not so much on TikTok, even though, you know, it's probably the most popular platform right now. I still got a Facebook account, but I'd say mostly Instagram and Discord is probably the most social media that I promote on. And that's the base of the community that I deal with.
Got you. Yeah. Grim, you told us about your social media. Nate, we'll go back to you. Let's start with these reviews and comments. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, just so you know, sorry, I got a hard out in like 5 minutes, so I don't want to just be rude.
Okay.
You guys.
Yeah, no problem. You know what? Let's do this then. If you got to go in 5, let's do you first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah. So give us your thoughts about reviews and comments and reception, you know, of the work. Because, you know, Nate said something important. I think all of us deal with this as content creators. You do a lot of work, you put a lot of hours in, and you do in some way sit there and watch and see who's viewing you, right? You know, is anybody paying attention to what I'm doing? Not just paying attention in the sense of views, but what are the responses, right? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they neutral? So, you know, give some thought on that.
So I will say this. just for clarity, you are concerned about what people think about the stuff you just made.
I didn't say concerned. I didn't say concerned. I said you're wondering what, in other words, did people dig what I did?
Yeah,
I mean,
wondering
I'm
and
not.
concern might be interchangeable to me. I mean, the reason why
Let
I
me
say
ask you
that
this:
is
is
because
affirmation good for you?
it used to be when I was a young artist. But
Interesting.
once you reach a certain point, you don't really derive validation from.
I didn't say
people
validation.
who-
You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say that.
No. I'm just interpreting what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm not putting words in your mouth or anything
Okay.
like that. I'm just trying to interpret what you're saying. But
yeah,
the concern or the interest in other people's opinion about the art and about what I do, it really only matters when it's a platform. We talked about that earlier with the one review. That's a major platform. That website has millions upon millions of people who read those reviews. There was millions upon millions of people who read that review.
Right.
And so, yeah, I had a little bit of an issue with it. But if it's just some person who doesn't like what I do, or, even if they do like what I do, I appreciate it. But it won't make or break my motivation in doing it. So I have to keep that distant from
and that's where I was going.
Creativity.
Thank
aspect,
you.
yeah.
You hit where I was going. Because there is that you have to separate yourself at some point. Because if you don't, you can find yourself gauging your work or gauging what you do based upon the whim of just some person who says something. Some people are just haters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that's
true.
it. And you can have 10 people who tell you it's great, one person who says something very ripping, and find out that one person affected you more than the 10 people who said things are great. So no, I'm glad you highlighted that. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Absolutely.
Okay. You got to duck out?
I do. But I just wanted to say I appreciate you having me on the platform. I really appreciate everybody on the panel. I sent messages to you guys just so I can keep in contact with you guys because I really appreciate your platform. Natronix, Starjump Grim. Is it Kalrati? Is that how I pronounce that?
Yes, it is.
Hey, that's a great name, man. Jade, much appreciated for your invite. And then Griffin, I sent you a message so that we can hopefully stay in touch.
Yes, sir. We appreciate you being on today, man. And like I said, we're going to keep rocking in that music to get my 600. So keep putting it out. All right.
Hey, I appreciate you guys listening to it. It's crazy that anybody listens to me. I think it's insane anyone listens to GreydonSquare. I think you're a crazy person.
Awesome. Hey, tell people where they can find you.
Appreciate you.
Tell people where they can find you.
GreydonSquare on any of the music platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube Music. And if you want to reach out to me on Discord, we have a Grand Unified Discord channel. We also have Grand Unified social media, whether it's Instagram or Twitter or something like that. You can find me as my name, Greydon, GREYDON, GreydonSquare, on any social media format that's out there. So
and you stream?
You can Google me.
You stream?
I stream on. Yeah, I used to stream pretty regularly. I took a couple of weeks off because I had to focus on some actual business stuff. I own a comic book company as well, so we were working on our actual release, and I needed the hours. So now that that's getting ready to release our Kickstarter campaign for Extropy and Entropy issue 1, then I'm actually getting ready to go into that.
Awesome.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming, man. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. And if you guys ever want me on again, let me know. I'd love to be back.
All right. We're going to get you.
All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Take care, man. Have a good night.
Peace.
Okay. Nate, you were going to share some relation to reviews and comments.
Yes. Well, by the way, I know, Grim, you were saying you made in the comments some of your fans post on Reddit. There is a Russian version of Overclocked out there. Someone dubbed it all over. Actual voice actors dubbed it in Russian. So it's like, anyway, I could share that link later on, but that was like free promotion. But the comments and reviews, here's the thing. And we were talking about this earlier. I'm going to do what I'm going to do no matter what. I'm not going to do it for anybody but me, because I think all of us can agree we make the art we do because it's fun, and you need to love what you do to see it through, because it's so hard and it takes so much time. With that said, you do want to share it and find your fans, because these are people that share that enthusiasm with you. And then in my case, I've had a lot of fun crossover work with people from the community that have left reviews and things like that. But every now and then there's a comment that is either scathing towards what you've done. There's comments that are scathing about Star Citizen. There are people that post books on my stuff that just talk about Star Citizen. I'm trying to filter myself.
Yeah,
Here.
has nothing to do with your work. Just going to rant about Star Citizen just because that happens to be the subject matter. Right?
And have you gotten the age old? You work for CIG secretly.
Yeah.
They're paying you under the table.
Yes. Yeah. They'll be
we
like,
all have. Don't worry.
They'll be like, "Oh, SIG has time to do this. Why don't they fix the game?" And it's like, no. I'm not. This is a passion project. But I do want to say, and I try to listen to. I read every comment. And I try to listen to what people are saying, especially people that come at me with criticism. I think it's okay. Like if you have your opinion, that's fine. But when you come at me and try to tell me how to do my thing, that's when I'm like, well, no, I'm coming from a place of experience and knowledge where I know what I'm doing and I'm doing it and there's reason behind it. Maybe ask the creator before you criticize if you have something pointed to say. And then the other thing is the only people that I blocked, maybe 4 people. And there are people that have weird hatred towards women in certain cases. Like some people talk trash about Ava, how a woman could never do that and a woman doesn't do that. I just kill that right on the spot because I don't want that to grow and fester in my community. But that's about, those are, I don't even sort of give those energy, but it's the comments where someone says, oh my God, the FOIP is so bad. It's like, okay, but let's see you do it better because, or the story doesn't make sense. And it's like, well, I understand what you mean, but I sort of made this up as I went along. It's a different format than a traditional narrative that you might be used to.
Yeah. Right.
So for the most part, I can deal with it. And most of the stuff is very positive. But let me tell you, I think it goes for every human being in the world. It's scary to put yourself out there, especially when it's something personal that you've made with love. But at the end of the day, you keep doing it because you do you. I mean, it's the one thing, it's the gift that you give. It's your expression. There's nothing wrong or right about it.
Well, Jade and Kalrati are both on our, usually on our Thursday show. That's when we look at Machinima from Soul Citizens. And, they've seen dozens of Machinimas over the last couple of years that we've done. And, we try to critique. And when I say critique, I mean, we give our feedback in the sense of when we see something that's good. And when we can see some people who are just getting started. We can see people who can tell they have some background in film, but we're always trying to encourage people because we know that the better people get, the more stuff they put out, that's better for everybody, right? Yeah. And people have we've had criticisms to your stuff, and you've always like, hey, thanks for showing this, blah 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 blah. And we say, yeah, we're looking forward to seeing the next one. We don't say, yeah, go don't quit your day job. We honestly want to see more work from you guys when you guys produce stuff because it's really inspiring, I think, to the community. It's really, really good stuff.
And to give you all a compliment, on Soul Citizen specifically in regards to Machinima, while what I do isn't specifically Machinima, a lot of that stuff has a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of dialogue. Sometimes they can be quite long. And I think it's really cool that Soul Citizens, whenever you do those reviews, you actually let them play out in their entirety without talking over them, pausing them constantly and stuff, which is really cool. And I just said in my community earlier today that one of the things I really like about Soul Citizens, and there's not many content creators that do this, but you constantly shine the spotlight back on other content creators. And so for me personally, I'm sure many others out there, thank you for doing that.
We appreciate that. Jade, Kalrati, you guys got anything for Nate? Because you guys have seen these videos. We've been watching Ava for a while now, her journey. Well, actually, we love the throwback that she went back to her origins.
Yeah, we did. Oh yeah.
Very cool.
Oh,
yeah. When I first heard her utter their words, that her mom threw her out with the trash, I immediately thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool to go back to what led up to that? I didn't say anything to you because I'm not trying to tell you what to, create, but I had hoped that I would see that story or at least get a little more of how she got to where she was. So I was gleeful and giddy when I saw that. So yeah.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
The thing is, what I really hope as time goes along, we've seen where the narratives team is, shifting more and more toward, in-game stories, in-game missions, and integrating and working more with the actual mission teams. That I hope that they, that they draw inspiration and even work with the Machinima makers to actually flesh out these stories. Because, I mean, if you're talking about large universe, and you're only looking at at around how many people are working in the narration team at CIG. So them working with machinima makers to actually draw from inspiration or even use aspects to actually create story-driven missions. It doesn't have to be mocap and those things, but to actually have a background. I think they have a really healthy, mind of machinima makers and ideas that they can actually create a vast amount of stories.
I do know my brother, who also plays, he was at a Bar Citizen with some of the developers, and they did say they're huge fans of things like Overclocked and the other machine. They all are watching these things. And let me tell you, Zark and I talk about this all the time. It would be a dream come true if they acknowledged Ava as part of official lore, or Zark as official lore somehow. I would just uninstall the game and go live on an island and just
Well, I'll tell you this, and to Kalrati's point, I was amazed at how many people enjoyed when they did Reunion. So imagine if they were to allow for those things to transfer over to community folks to be able to produce those videos. First of all, it takes a monkey off their back. It minimizes the amount of time they have to do it. There are plenty of people out here who would have the enthusiasm, even if they were contracted. Oh my God, that would be even more fabulous. Rogue Talon, thank you for that follow. But yeah, we're going to see where the future lends this, because we have such a talented community. You guys have just been great, and I hope CIG continues to keep their eye, because they do. They've told us, we watch what's going on. A lot of people don't. I don't know if people believe them when they say that, but they do. They read the forums, the spectrums. They look at videos. They're out there lurking all the time, paying attention to what's going on in our community, which I think is fabulous.
CIG looking right now.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, they sneak in. They sneak in over here once in a while. Grim, what about you? Reviews, comments, all that good stuff.
The biggest thing I think with Starjump specifically is just general confusion on what we are, how we're made up, and what everyone does within the group. Because I think we get a lot of great reviews and comments from people. Sometimes they're directed to the wrong people. I joke with Ender a lot how he gets complimented so much on the cinematics, but he doesn't have any part of those.
Right.
And the good, we always, direct the compliments where they're supposed to go, but that's probably the thing that if I could start over and go back to the beginning of Starjump, I would arrange Starjump in terms of its organization a little differently, so it was better defined and not just completely one umbrella. Everyone within it kind of does their own thing, which I wouldn't mind highlighting real quick. VMXEO, he does StarFab. StarFab is a really amazing tool that tons of people are using now. And he does his work to help me out on Fleet Viewer. Starlet does all the back end work and coding and stuff for Fleet Viewer. Ender handles a lot of charity stuff, doing St. Jude as we speak, and handles a lot of just community. He's a hype man, as he calls himself. And then I do the cinematics. I kind of dreamed up and led the Fleet Viewer project. I do the shipyard show and stuff like that. So a lot of that work. Sometimes I won't see the good comments of people that reach out directly, or they'll go into other channels that I'm not in, which is frustrating sometimes. However, I would say 99% of the time, all the reviews and stuff that we get on videos, especially on YouTube, are all positive. Very rarely do I get anything negative, which is great. And when I do, it's usually what Nate said, someone saying, why are you working on this when you should be fixing XYZ bug? Or it'll be a complaint about, just how the, scam citizen sort of thing. And if it's just a critique about the work itself, like if someone just says, I thought the ships were too shiny or this or that, I leave those comments. I don't police them. I leave them up because I'm fine with that. Critique doesn't hurt my feelings. I've been working in the industry for a long time. But if it's if it's a comment designed around meanness, and just trying to troll, I, just like Nate said, I delete it instantly and I'll give it no thought. If it's critiquing the team and honestly, if it's directly attacking CIG in a negative way, I kill it as well, because I just don't think that's the place for it. It's not that I'm against, criticism of anything. It's not the place for it. And I do like to keep certain comment threads directed towards what the content is, right?
Yep.
And not just kind of, go all over the place. I will say, the nicest comments I get are when someone says, hey, your video. So I just put out the Shipyard Endeavor video, and I got a lot of compliments from people saying, or comments from people saying, hey, watching this helped me make a decision to hold off on the Endeavor for pledging on it, or maybe made me want to rearrange my hanger a little bit. And that made me feel good because I felt like I was giving people some information that they can make wise decisions with. And then the other cool thing is when I do get, reached out to by CIG, different people there have reached out over time and sent me compliments. Some of them have asked me, randomly, like, for example, I'll give you a good example. The guy at CIG who sort of designed the jump gates, right? Who originally designed the jump gates and that we've all seen. He reached out to me and said, how did you get the jump gate model? It looks so close to what I did. And I said, well, I just pulled up concept work and modeled it from scratch based off that. And he wrote back and forth several times just saying how cool it was to see his work reinterpreted that way and stuff. And that happens quite a bit, actually. So those are always really nice comments to see come in. So, but yeah, generally though, not a lot of negative stuff. Overall, the Star Citizen community is very positive. I would say it's maybe one negative comment out of every 50 good comments, or out of every 100 comments, and you can police those pretty easily.
My final question tied into this category we're in right now is, have you ever talked with people from CIG about, or anyone's ever talked to you from CIG about your work yet? Has anybody ever said, hey, great job, or we watched it?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Nate.
I mean, through the community hub, like the noir thing that EE Studio we just did got MVP'd by SIG, and then we get a lot of staff picks. I don't know if a dev has. I wouldn't know if a dev has reached out to me or not on this. I don't know, but like. I do know that, like I said, my brother was at a Bar Citizen, and the devs there said, "Tell your brother we're huge fans of Overclocked," and that was really cool. Nice. But that's about it in terms of direct contact with SIG for me.
That's good. That's great.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I have been reached out to quite a few times. Primarily on the cinematics early on, it was just random developers kind of hit me up. Saying, hey, nice job. Or I'd hear from someone who was a good friend of a developer, hey, so-and-so likes your work. Or, hey, there's a big group of CIG devs in a channel right now together watching your cinematic. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And it was great to get that. And, being a staff pick and stuff on the hub is really cool. Again, it shows that appreciation. With Fleet Viewer specifically, though, with that project, I got hit up by CIG and the lawyers pretty quick. It was probably around 6 hours later. And that was a really interesting conversation. I won't go into a lot of detail on it because they probably won't want me to, but I can sum it up. And it was, they got a hold of me. And at first I was like, oh boy, they're going to ask me to pull this down for whatever reason. So, something's not right for it. And there was some concerns by CIG, specifically in regards to some Squadron 42 assets, that were making an appearance in the Fleet Viewer. But what they told me was, and this was like a really cool compliment. And I love this, one of my favorite ones. And it was that they told me that we were going to have you remove some stuff from Fleet Viewer because we didn't want it out there. However, tons of people at CIG are filling up the internal CIG Slack channels with their own fleet build images from Fleet Viewer, and even some of the real high up people who make all the big decisions. So they like it so much, they're going to allow you to keep the Squadron 42 stuff in there. So I was like, okay, that's a big win. I'll take that as like the best compliment you can get.
That's cool.
So, I never had any issues other than them telling me, make sure you don't profit from this, which I wouldn't want to, because they do own those ships. Those, even the ship silhouettes are there. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been really cool. I can say that through time, I have made a lot of contacts at CIG who I, remain in pretty regular content. And the ones I talk to are huge fans of the Machinima, all the creative work out there. I mean, generally artists love to see their work, that, you know, something they're working on be reimagined by someone or shown through a different prism. We like that generally. You know, obviously we don't want to be ripped off, we don't want to be exploited in any way, but we like when someone can view our stuff and then shine a different light on it, whether through, you know, stuff like, you know, what Nate does or what Greydon does in music or what I do with cinematics or Fleet Viewer. Generally that's, people look at that as, you know, you know, tipping their hat to them. So when I talk to them, they all think it's really great and are behind it. And I mean, I think we've seen a little bit of that with CIG, just, you know, showing, you know, kind of in-universe commercials from the community, you know, on ISCs and stuff. So there's a little bit of that coming in. I'd like to see a lot more. But yeah, I think CIG is starting to recognize that a bit more than they used to, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think the community is one of their greatest assets, and you know, there's so many really creative people in the community that can help them, you know, have more content, whether it's in shows like, you know, Star Citizen Live or in the verse, which I think a lot of people want.
Precisely.
And it's hard too. I mean, I sympathize with the challenge they have to deal with, because they are a company built around their community and you know, essentially raising money off their community. However, they're not a small company anymore. They're one of the biggest gaming studios out there. And to maintain that balance of having a healthy corporate culture and be in the business of making games and making money, which they should be in the business of, because for Star Citizen to be successful, they need to make money and be a good business. To maintain all that, but still keep all the community stuff going, I think is pretty amazing. I mean, I've been in a lot of different gaming communities, and I still think CIG is heads and shoulders above, you know, interacting with us. And showing their appreciation in different ways for the community content that's out there. And their recent, you know, even their recent, you know, new community hub that they came out with is the, you know, them showing that appreciation. And it may not be perfect, but what I'm saying is that they're trying to build upon things to give us a better platform to show off stuff. So
yeah, I love the new community hub. It's great.
Yeah.
We've got a couple questions for you guys. One of them is coming from one of your colleagues in the industry, New Soul Sounds. They ask, great show. What do you guys master bus chain for your post-production work?
I don't even know what that means.
I think Greydon.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Probably, I was going to say more toward Greydon. Oh, okay.
I'll just sum up Starjump's general pipeline like this. It's chaos because the budget's so slim, and I'm usually working on it. I have my day job and everything else, and we're managing community. Chaos is how I manage that bus chain.
Okay,
just pure chaos.
Fair enough. And I'm going to go to Pops. He asked the question: should Star Citizen research a similar project to what Adobe did with their content summary? Adobe pays for this collection of resources that are lawfully copied and that users can access. Is this the best approach for Star Citizen, like for their jukebox? And again, that's leaning toward music a little bit more than cinematics and stuff.
Yeah, I would like to see them do that or something similar. I think my big concern now with things like that making its way into the verse is I do worry that as we approach the marketing build up to Squadron 42, and while I haven't specifically heard anything, I've heard some murmurings that make me think that once that tire starts turning, we're going to see probably a temporary clamp down on a lot of desire to kind of integrate fan stuff into the game directly to make sure they have a clear and strong marketing message behind Squadron 42 and to sort of build what this is to the greater outside world, and then once we get past that, then we'll see conversations and stuff pop up around this again, where how do we bring some of the fan stuff into Star Citizen. But I think until we get past that hump, I actually think we're going to see a little bit of a pullback from CIG, not in stuff created by the fans, just being put out in the community, but specifically stuff created by the fans making its way into the game in any way, specifically music. Because they're going to want to tighten up that marketing message. And let's say if Squadron 42 is, let's say if it's a year out right now, I don't know when it's coming, by the way, I'm just speculating real quick. Let's say if it's a year out, then they'll probably start that marketing campaign 8 months early, right? If it's 2 years out, they may be, 12 months away from starting that campaign, but there's going to be a lead into that, and there's usually a marketing plan. So while I hope they do something like that, especially in regards to music and broadcasting, because I know you all just had that broadcasting show recently, I think we're not going to see that until after CIG sort of sets a precedent with Squadron 42, and then we'll have to see where that nets out. How much are the CIG lawyers willing, how much slack are they willing to give the fan stuff to come into what they've built. So.
And that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because CIG is going to want their vision to be very clear for Squadron 42 and not for it to get convoluted or mixed up with anything or just someone else's view of what it's supposed to be. But it's understandable,
Yeah, and because they have to get that right when they launch it, and everything's going to ride on their messaging, and they're not going to want a lot of outside stuff, even if it is at really high quality. They're not going to want that, providing extra noise, to that channel. So,
Okay, awesome. Okay, well, listen, we are going to wrap it up. We've had a great conversation, technical things going crazy and all, but we've had some great conversations from our guests today. Nate, tell people where people can find you and your work.
EE Studios on YouTube. That's about it.
Well, you're EE Studios 1 on Twitter, by the way, because I actually tweeted your stuff out. So I know your Twitter, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Grim, how about you?
You can find us over on YouTube, obviously. Just type Starjump in YouTube, the search bar. It'll find us. It'll pull stuff up immediately. Or you can type Starjump and Star Citizen will come up. On Twitch, there's Yo-Yo Meg coming in with 27.
Yeah, Yo-Yo, thank you. Meg. Welcome, Yo-Yos, folks. We appreciate you guys. Yo-Yo, we're about to wrap up. We're going to send them over to Abdi, just so you'll know. And I know you and Abdi play together, so I'm giving you fair warning. We're going to be going over to Abdi.
And then last but not least, you can definitely follow me on Twitch. I'm going to start streaming a lot more, especially like my Skunk Works show where I build ships from the chat request. I'll build ships live in 3D. You can follow me, on Twitch at Starjump_Grim. And then obviously my fellow Starjumper Ender does a lot of charity stuff, and he's on Twitch as well, Starjump_Ender. Yeah, that's primarily where we're at.
I'm going to do plugs for these guys too. Ender just put out a big thing about you guys are doing a big thing for St. Jude this year. We've done St. Jude in the past. We'll probably jump on the boat with that. Also, Starjump Station just did a new video on the Endeavor. So for those of you who are interested in the Endeavor, his Shipyard series, we did a Shipyard series. He's doing one. Check out the one that they just put out on the Endeavor. Really good stuff. Nate, Ender. Oh God!
Of course, Ender. As I'm promoting Ender on the channel.
Okay, Ender. Thank you so much. We're about to close up over here too. Oh my God, Nate. What you guys just did we really enjoyed Noir. That one was good, really good. Is there anything you got a new project coming up? Something you're working on that we can be looking forward to yet?
My big thing is helping other creators, doing crossover stuff with them, and like behind the scenes support. We do have a new Overclocked episode coming out, which is actually directed by for the first time. It's directed by not me, and I'm sort of helping produce that. But that will be coming out probably sometime later this month.
Okay, awesome. We're going to look for it.
Yeah, me and Nate and Greydon have already sent each other friend requests and accepted and chatted behind the scenes during this show. And it's really cool to connect with everyone. Because again, we sometimes, and Nate may feel the same, you get caught up in your own silo sometimes when you're working on projects that, take a while to create. So it's good to put the feelers out there and, hopefully be able to collaborate with some of these people.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, listen, Jade, can you talk about Thursday? Kalrati, can you talk about Saturday?
Yes, absolutely. So, as some of you may know, and some of you don't, Soul Talk on Thursday is the show where you all can come in here to our Discord and talk with us about like the last week in Star Citizen, what we've been shown, or just the game in general. So if you ever wanted to come on here, and don't be afraid, we won't bite, at least
Too hard.
most of us won't. Maybe Fast Cards Jokes will, but yeah. But yeah, definitely come to Soul Talk. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern every Thursday.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I was going to say thanks again. I just wanted to send all y'all, Griff, Fast Card, Jade, Kalrati, everyone on the Soul Citizens. Thanks so much for, always highlighting other content creators, because in the world of content creation and, whether it's on YouTube or streaming or whatever, people are a brand and they want to usually market themselves, put themselves out there. They're trying to build. So I do think it's pretty unique and rare for people to constantly shine the spotlight on other content creators. So I personally want to say thank you for that, because you've all shown Starjump a lot of love. So I do appreciate that.
I echo that.
No, but you guys give us free entertainment, so what else can we do, right?
Exactly. Thanks for the voices.
We're all in this together. Like to me, it's all about supporting each other. Just me personally.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
There you go.
Exactly.
Exactly. And yeah, speaking of voices, we will be here Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Soul Voices. We talk about all things community concerns. We grab it off Spectrum, Reddit, YouTube, everywhere with regards to the Star Citizen community. And of course, the player haters have returned.
They were here yesterday, right? The player haters were back yesterday. Yeah.
Oh yeah, come on in and join up and give us your opinion. Just be part of the voices.
Absolutely. And next Sunday, we're going to be going back to Pyro. We've talked about it from the aspect of the system and stuff like that in the past. But now we're going to be talking about what we call pyrotechniques. What is it going to take to exist, to live in the pyro system? Those of you who are interested, or travel through the pyro system. We're going to be talking about all the details, the dangers, the fun, the excitement, the piracy, all those cool things that we kind of have a hint toward. We don't know everything, but we got some stuff that we can have a conversation about. So that's going to be next Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So be here to join us for that. All righty. I think that is it. Don't forget, we've got our Soul referral codes that are on the bottom of the page on Twitch. If you guys are new to the game, you can check out those referral codes for any of our co-hosts. Support them that way. That's a very cool way to support them. That way they can get their little yellow jacket and their 5,000 credits or something like that. So we appreciate you guys for doing that. Once again, thank you to Natronix. Thank you to Grim. Thank you for GreydonSquare. You guys were great tonight. Thank you for bearing through our technical issues tonight. I'm going to blow up XSplit when I disconnect and find out what the problem is with that. We are going to be setting up a raid with one of our own, Abdi Johan. Abdi's one of the Soul Citizens. He is streaming tonight. Got a beautiful baby. He's a great guy. He has a very cool way of streaming by integrating graphics into his work while he's playing Star Citizen. You guys get over when you see Abdi, give him some love, give him a follow. Yo, thank you so much for that raid. Ender, we love you. Thank you so much for that raid. Your buddy, he represented you well, as he always does. And we want to say thank you to all you guys for being here tonight. So stay safe, take care of yourselves. And as always, peace, love, and soul. We'll see you guys real soon. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, people.
Thank you.